a lot of the developing countries, third world countries, whatever you want to call them, they are stuck in these predatory loans. And it's like a vicious cycle.
Right.
To break out of it is extremely, extremely hard. If El Salvador manages that is a very powerful example to set.
That current leader is actually showing respect to his people. And at the same time, I think that level of respect is being asked from the people.
The roads here, they didn't exist a year ago.
Yep.
The first time I came, there was like a dirt road here. If you go to the downtown in San Salvador, the way they're making it really beautiful, and you also know that in 2 years' time, it'll look completely different again. The speed at which progress is happening in El Salvador is incredible, and the direction which is happening is extremely promising.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the visual part, but you also feel the ethereal part of it. And that hits you the moment you get here.
Hello and welcome to another episode of You're the Voice. Thanks for being with me in Mike Peterson's Bitcoin Beach studio. Shout out to Mike and Paco. Thank you so much for hosting us once again. We're in El Zonte, El Salvador. I can't believe I'm saying it. I can't believe I'm here. Lina, I'm here.
Yeah. To be
Hello,
fair,
Lina.
it's a very fancy studio. He upgraded it.
is.
It's like quadrupled in size.
Have you been to each one of his quadruple?
But what's the next
Afterward,
biggest?
I don't know. How do you say it?
Quintuple?
Whatever.
Okay.
But you've been to each one of the stages of this studio's
Yes.
evolution, right?
Every time it gets bigger.
You're visiting here.
Yes.
So Lina Seiche, am I saying it right? Is it Seiche?
No, but it's okay.
So how do you say it?
Seiche.
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 Yeah.
More or less. Seiche.
Yeah, it's such
Seiche.
a German name. Yeah.
Lina Seiche.
That's actually very good.
Seiche. My surname is also German. Pfennigson.
Oh, no way. Cool.
Pfennig, the coin.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and Zon, the son. So it's like a poor kid. So probably the roots of the family are from a poor family.
Oh, that's like a Viking's
guessing.
name, actually. Yeah.
But Pfennig is the old coin, right? The old German
I
coin.
used to use them when I was very, very little.
Yeah, you had
before we
Pfennigs.
got our beautiful new currency.
So you had Pfennig. So here I am with a fiat currency name.
Wow.
What a symbolic thing.
I'm so sorry.
And it's also not the easiest name for people to pronounce. So, you're in a good company. So Lina, thank you so much for being with me here today.
Thank you for having me.
Before we dive into the conversation about you and with you, I want to give again a shout out to the Bitcoin Beach and ask my audience to please support the Bitcoin Beach by going to their YouTube channel and giving them a subscribe. And also for You're the Voice, go to our YouTube or any other channel, Twitter, wherever you are. I refuse to call it X. And please give a comment or a review.
You're also a Twitter boomer.
Yeah,
me too.
I am a Twitter boomer. And every donation helps. So if you want to support me and the show, please do so. And also Bitcoin Beach. And if you're listening on Fountain, then boost or zap us. And thank you so much for the support. All right, Lina, we are with you here today. And for me, this is so awesome because I met you in Prague. I think it was about 6 months ago.
Yes.
When we were there together for the Trezor Day and the BTC Prague festival, I would say. And we had a little chat and I fell in love straight away. And
With
I
me?
Told you, of course.
Oh
and
my
I
God.
told you that I would love to have you on my podcast because you had such a serene, calm energy and you were so nice and welcoming. And you were like, yes, please come to my new home in El Salvador. And, we will do stuff together. And I'm like, she's so nice. And that is so great.
Invite people, but they never come.
So here I am.
I'll come, but it takes like 30 hours. And then they never come. And then people come. It's like I'm
Yes.
over the moon.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, your story, you're going to tell me all about it, but my audience don't know who you are. So for people to know, you're the founder of Little HODLer, which is an amazing e-commerce website. Go check it out. There is so much to see there. And also, Lina and I have agreed that we're going to arrange a special benefit for my audience. So if you want to purchase any of the items, you'll have a benefit. We'll put it all in the show notes so you can use it just before the big sale that Lina is going to have on our website, right?
Yes.
Right? So you're going to have fun with all those plushie dolls, and we have one here.
Is he visible?
Yes. Here's a plushie. Here's a little hodler. This is the original, the OG hodler, right? The
Yes.
OG little hodler, but there are so many versions of them. And you're so creative, and she keeps creating new versions of the plushie. And she writes books. She's draws beautifully, cartoons, amazing stuff. You should follow her on Twitter because you're going to have fun seeing all the tweets that she puts out there. And she's also playing the piano so beautiful. Just the other day, I shared one of your tweets with a video of you playing the piano, and I felt like it was an angel singing. You have such a beautiful voice, and yeah, it's so nice.
Oh my God.
It was Kiss Me that you
Yeah.
played. It was such a nice song.
I love that song.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. I'm gonna put it in this episode. What else did I forget to say? She's also doing marketing for, wait, I've got the name, Beans of Fire, which is the new brand of coffee from El Salvador. We'll talk about that as well. So she's the creative mind behind the marketing of Beans of Fire, which is also great. I come from a marketing background, 20 years, so I appreciate good marketing. Yeah, and there's so much more to say, but I want you to tell your story. And I want you to start as early as you want. So like, where'd you come from? What led you to develop yourself in all of these directions, so all these artistic, creative directions? You're originally from Germany. Here you are in El Salvador, living here. So what has happened? Tell us a little bit about you.
All right. So when I was 12, but actually I could
You
start
can start there. You start wherever you want.
When I was 12, I decided I'd go overseas. I was like, I'm gonna move to Japan. And I was such a huge Japan fan. We had this TV channel in Germany that showed anime after school. So we'd be all watching like Dragon Ball and.
It makes so much sense that you like anime. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. So actually, when people ask me where do you start, that's probably where I start, because that's where I kind of became obsessed with the idea of going overseas, the creative stuff. That's when I taught myself piano. That's when I started learning Japanese, when I started like doing all the creative stuff. But probably the interesting part starts afterwards. So I did do that when I was 18. I finished school. Then I went to Japan, lived there for a while. And then after that, I just basically lived overseas. So
You lived in Japan for how long?
I lived in total, oh my God, I don't even know, because I stayed there several times, and I stayed in a little resort town.
Yep.
When I was 18. It's called Karuizawa. Nobody knows it, but it's like an hour north of Tokyo. Mm-hmm. And in Tokyo in summer, it gets really hot. And it's not like here. They don't have pools everywhere and oceans. So they go up north 1 hour, and then they're in this valley, and they eat Japanese stuff.
Great food.
And play golf. And yeah, really great food. I was
course.
working in a Hawaiian restaurant. I was being a waitress with the Hawaiian flour and stuff. Yeah, making pancakes. So I stayed in Karuizawa, and then I've also lived in Tokyo. But I basically, the majority of the last 10 years I spent in Asia, like Japan, Malaysia, Philippines, Taiwan.
Wow.
Those corners. And it was in that, it's a Bitcoin podcast, right? So it was during that time.
I mean, my podcast is not just a Bitcoin podcast. We talk about life. We talk about everything. So yeah.
Normally the first question I get is, how did you get into Bitcoin?
No, we'll get to that really boring, whenever you want. But no. I want to hear more about your background.
Cool. Yeah. So that's where I spent the majority of the last 10 years. And then I traveled a lot. I traveled a lot for the Bitcoin work that I was doing, but also in general. And then I got used to it. So I did that for like 10 years. Now I've been in like 35-ish countries.
Wow.
And last year I moved here
You're the Voice is brought to you by Trezor, the original Bitcoin hardware wallet company pioneering the development of self-custody for crypto assets since 2013, empowering individuals with an open source device, enabling beginners and experts to easily and securely hold their coins. I find my Trezor super easy to use and recommend it to my friends and family. Enjoy my 5% discount on Trezor products by clicking the link in the show notes and using the code FLAT.
So I have a company, Little HODLer, that I started now 4 years ago. And that company has traveled with me and sort of grown with me and like gone through this. Well, he has lived one cycle now. Yeah. So I've been there a little
4
longer.
years.
Yeah. And, it's come to a point where because Little HODLer started as a comic brand, I was drawing comics, posting them on Twitter about Bitcoin stuff. And it's come to a point now where I can actually reuse my old comics because we're one cycle in. And I realized that the comics, they work well every cycle.
They're relevant.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I did that and I've done several different jobs, but the last 7 years or so I've been in the Bitcoin space. And last year I visited El Salvador in August. I fell in love with it. And then I came back in September and I fell in love some more. And then I came back in October and then I moved here.
Wow.
And since then I've been here. I've moved my company here, moved everything here. Actually, our entire team, we're all here now. And we do everything here. It was sort of what I wanted to do, bring as much of our work into El Salvador as possible and do it from here. And that's what we do now. And
so you told me it's such a change for you because from moving around from place to place, now you have that feeling that you actually want to stay in one place.
Yeah.
Is that something different for you?
Yeah.
And what is it about El Salvador that does that to you?
Oh, I have no idea. I've tried to explain it so many times, but that's exactly how it is. Because I've been basically on the road for 10 years. And anybody who travels understands that after a while you get used to it.
Yep.
So and it was not something I planned. I didn't go and say, okay, I'm going to travel the world and see all the countries. I just went to the countries that I liked.
Yep.
Which was Japan at first. And I really loved Malaysia as well. And some other countries as well. So I would just go where I liked it. And then from there, I would go where I liked it. And then I realized, okay, I'm actually staying like very short amounts in each of these countries. So your brain probably subconsciously gets used to the idea of the transience, the temporariness of staying in places. Mm-hmm. So subconsciously, you already ready yourself for a new place once you go to one place. Mm-hmm. And it never really bothered me, but it's something that happened until I came here. So basically what it means in practice is that you don't buy stuff. You don't buy furniture, or you don't buy big things, or you don't make big commitments. You don't fix yourself to a location in one way or another.
You live the true nomad life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then here, it's like it clicked. It just changed. Now I'm like, oh, I have a piano now.
That's a pretty big thing.
That's pretty big.
That you can't really take with you anywhere.
I'm thinking to buy bunnies. So it's like, those are the kinds of thoughts that I haven't had. So I don't know, maybe I'm getting older or maybe it's El Salvador. The timing makes me think it's probably El Salvador. There is a big difference here. And the main difference that I could tell coming here for the first time, which is big part of the reason why I fell in love with this place, is that you come into a space of optimism.
Right.
You come into a place of progress. I've never seen that before, where in a world where you constantly feel like you're too late to everything. I remember did I say I'm from Germany? I'm from Germany. So I remember in Germany in school, we had an economics class and our teacher was showing us this graph of how a country's economy will go like in waves, basically. It'll go up and then it'll crash, and then in the best case it'll go up again and it'll crash again. And he drew like a little point at the top of the wave. He's like, Germany is here right now.
Ooh, it's gonna get worse.
Oh, lo and behold, he was right. So, but that's the feeling that a lot of us have right? That we are constantly too late to anything. We're too late to benefit from an economic boom. We're too late to benefit from a strong currency. We're too late to buy a house. We're too late to afford our rent or our groceries or our anything. So being early to something is a feeling that we haven't really had, and I've only had it twice. Once was with Bitcoin, and the second time was when I saw what's happening in El Salvador, which is like the progress here is incredible. A lot of it is visual, like you can see the construction here, right? The roads here, they didn't exist a year ago, like
right.
a little over a year ago.
Yep.
So the first time I came, there was like a dirt road here. If you go to the downtown in San Salvador, the way they're making it really beautiful, and you also know that in 2 years' time, it'll look completely different again. The speed at which progress is happening in El Salvador is incredible, and the direction which is happening is extremely promising.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the visual part, but you also feel the ethereal part of it. And that hits you the moment you get here. And I think that is what people feel when they come to El Salvador. They come from a place of maybe a country where people don't like their governments, because, well, they're not doing a particularly good job, where they've seen their quality of life go down over recent years. They come here, they see the opposite. So it's this kind of this je ne sais quoi. You don't know why, but you feel something's different.
Mm-hmm.
So once you spend some time looking into it, you realize why. That's what happened to me. And I personally feel very encouraged and motivated to do my small part and contribute to it. That's why I moved my company here. That's why I'm going to contribute to the economy by buying bunnies, probably. So, yes, things like that.
And you're going to do more stuff, which you're going to tell me more about in a sec. But I want to touch on something you said. And, you're coming from a Western country, which I'm assuming that you weren't very fond of the government in your country. And here, all of a sudden, something is different. Is it possible to be fond of a government once again?
It's not something people like to hear, especially in the Bitcoin space.
Right.
Yes.
So tell me, what's your view on that?
Oh, no, I think it's an incredible, it's not a secret that I'm very supportive of the government here, because it's a government that uses common sense, and it's very efficient, very effective, very productive, and very open-minded.
Right.
But not open-minded in the way that we have unfortunately seen in much of the world today, where your open-mindedness drives you to odd extremes in the social,
right,
in the social togetherness, let's say. Open-minded in the sense that, for example, the Bitcoin law. You need to be extremely open-minded.
Oh, yeah.
To even consider something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see this, and I saw this when I came here, because my company, we're building, or we're drawing basically school books for the education system. That was an idea that just came from, I met with Stacy, who runs the Bitcoin office here. She's like, hey, we need a school book. I said, hey, I can do it. She said, hey, give me a mock-up. I said, hey, here's your mock-up. She said, hey, do it. That's how we got the job.
Amazing.
Very open, very welcoming to people who want to contribute. That is not something I've seen before. And that makes you want to contribute. It makes you want to do your part.
Right.
Yeah.
And what specifically you were tasked with doing now is to actually influence the young generation of Salvadorians with education for Bitcoin. So can you say more about the project and what exactly they're going to experience?
Yeah, of course. So the school system here and the Bitcoin office has done a huge part with this. They teach Bitcoin already. So my first Bitcoin, which is an NGO that's active here, and I think you've talked to John.
I've interviewed John and Reina.
Yeah, John is great. Reina's also great. They're all great. They created the Bitcoin diploma, I think they call it. It's like an 8-week course for like high school level. Even adults can do it.
Of course.
Where you learn about Bitcoin. There was a gap in the younger age group, and we're filling that gap. So we're making several school books, teaching kids not just about Bitcoin. Actually, so far very little about Bitcoin, just more about money in general.
Financial literacy.
Yes. Financial literacy, yes. So the concept of money, the concept of value,
Right.
some light history of money. And then, of course, we need to talk about how everything fits into El Salvador, like where El Salvador came from and how Bitcoin makes sense in this timeline and how it jumped into this timeline and how it exists as part of the Salvadoran day-to-day now. And that's the kind of book that we're doing. Very colorful, very
Is it going to be the Little HODLer brand? Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to see the little one starring there?
He will guide you through the book. It's all Little HODLer. It's like one big comic book. Yeah.
That's amazing. And which ages does it cater for?
We are doing one per grade now. So we're starting in 2nd grade, which is where they're 7 years old. And then we're going up to 6th grade.
Okay.
And then we're, talking about different topics in these
So
grades.
for each year level, there's a different book?
Yes.
A bit more advanced every time?
Yeah, so that's most likely how it's going to look. And the idea is that you have some progression, right? So that you slowly learn more and more. And it's very important to me that it's not a book that goes and tells you, hey, here's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is great. Actually, I don't really care about that. I care more about giving the kids some access to historical information, but also even as far as philosophical concepts, because adults cannot answer the question, what is money? Many adults cannot answer this question. If you get kids to actually think about it and to get them to a point where they understand the concept of money, and they get that financial literacy, they'll be set up for life.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
This is a change that we have no idea what kind of society this is going to bring about, because we've never seen a society that actually understands money.
Yeah.
The understanding of money was reserved to a group of, I'd say, elite or, leaders, world leaders who think that they are leaders, but they kind of kept those secrets to themselves. And I always thought that it's no coincidence that no one taught us about money in the education system before. They have an interest for us not to know. They teach us what they want us to know. Mm-hmm. And they don't teach us what they don't want us to know. Mm-hmm. Because when we actually understand the way the system works, we can choose something else. We can try and create something else. And they don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's true.
So I think that what you're doing is, you may not see it right now because, you're working on a book and a book and a book and a book. But this is so much bigger than just that. This is going to impact people's lives, generations to come. And I think that is so inspiring.
Yeah, it's something you can see it on many levels here in El Salvador. So it's not just us. You talked to my first Bitcoin, right? You have the Bitcoin Beach project here. A lot is happening. And also not just on the financial literacy side. On so many levels, things are happening in El Salvador that are developing an extremely promising direction. Like we know about El Salvador because the president fixed the country's security. There is a lot more happening. The way that El Salvador is on the map, the way that there is people are looking at a country that in the past they completely disregarded. That is such an achievement. When has that happened last time? And that there's so much work behind that, and there's so much promise in it, because we're looking for a place with purpose, with a future. El Salvador is that place because it has a direction and people see the direction. And I hear a lot from my Salvadoran friends that they are not used to being admired from the outside world for, what's happening in their country. They're proud to be Salvadoran.
I know.
And they tell me that before
It must be so strange
that was not the case.
Yeah.
And that is so valuable. It's something that unfortunately in much of the modern West, I want to say, we have sort of forgotten it. We have forgotten how powerful unity is, how powerful it is to walk towards a shared goal. Because we're a very individualist culture, society, right?
Yeah.
Which has its perks. But if it becomes too much, if you start to believe that you're entitled to live a life wherein society has to bend to all your needs and wants and opinions and to your perfect vision of life, then you cannot live in a society. That's not how a society works. Unfortunately, this is somehow being perpetuated, and that kills this unity that is so important for a nation. You see it here, and you see how that pushes progress forward. And that's why I think El Salvador will be first in many innovative regards, and Bitcoin is one of them, and then there'll be others. So really excited to see.
It's amazing, and I think being part of this is truly a gift right now, because you guys are, I mean, I see it, I don't know if many people see it, but you're leading the way in so many fronts, and all the FUD that is around El Salvador from the mainstream media and from whoever is threatened by those moves that the country is taking is going to sit there and eat their hats in the end of the day. They're gonna, eat dust.
Yeah.
Because this country is not waiting for permission.
Yeah. And that's also another incredible thing, because right now things are changing so fast, but if you look back even a year, you start to realize right now, legacy media, for example, has very little credibility. Actually, they're basically on their way out. They don't control the narrative anymore. Mm-hmm. But for the longest time, they really did. And especially during the first 5 years of the current administration here, mm-hmm. they dictated a lot of the international opinion on El Salvador, not the national one. So Bukele was always extremely popular within El Salvador. But that Salvadoran opinion was completely disregarded by the outside world, which is a fun, like, that itself is very ironic. But to resist that for 5 years, and it's not just media narratives, there's much more to it. Like, there's to resist the powers that be, if you will, and come out stronger. That's very, very difficult, and it is so important that it seems to be working, because it sets an example for other countries in similar situations. Mm-hmm. If El Salvador had failed, it would have been such a bad precedent. But El Salvador is actually doing great. That shows something to the world. So. Yep,
I'm with you. Did you see the recent video by the IMF where they tell El Salvador, you kids, you're playing too much with your Bitcoin. Can you settle down, relax a little bit? We don't want you to play with your Bitcoin that much.
Yes.
What do you make of that?
I think
it's exactly
funny.
That, right?
Yeah, I think it's really funny because nobody cares. And they used to be much more harsh, let's say. They'd be like, stop that or else. Now they're like, could you just do a little less, please?
And they can't really stop
No.
anything because, Bukele was saying that within no time, the country will not be relying on IMF loans anymore. So the leverage is gone in a way, or in the long term, it's gone. Mm-hmm. And that changes the rules of the game.
Yes. And it's been a very strong narrative from especially these supranational organizations and basically the first world that developing countries need foreign aid. They need this support. They need this lifeline. And for somebody to turn around and say, actually, I don't think we need that. We just need to manage ourselves better is, they were laughing at it first because I remember he was saying it as early as 2019. Even before he became president, he was saying things like that. Nobody really cared because, like, what are you going to do?
Yep.
Like, a lot of the developing countries, third world countries, whatever you want to call them, they are stuck in these predatory loans. And it's like a vicious cycle.
Right.
To break out of it is extremely, extremely hard. And again, if El Salvador manages that is a very powerful example to set. And of course it will piss some people off.
Of course. And this is a bit like the Stockholm syndrome where on the one hand, those mighty organizations, the World Bank and the IMF, they say, oh, we're seeing everybody. We got your back. Don't worry. We'll take care of you. Even the poor ones, we are here for you. And And here we are giving you some money so that you can live. So on the outside, it's supposed to look like they're the saving hero, where in reality, what you and I know, and whoever puts in the time to actually learn about money and fiat and how it works and what they're doing with a debt-based economy, they're enslaving more and more countries all the time. And they keep perpetuating that state of victimhood where you're poor, we take care of you, but we're also continuing to keep you as a slave or a dependent entity on us.
Yeah.
And that state of victimhood is a state where most countries are not able to break out of. And I think here we have a leader that actually, pardon my French, has the balls to stand up and say, you know, there is another way, just like you said. There's another way. We can actually take ourselves out of this situation with good management, with some big changes that we're doing in the country, and with introducing a different way to manage our finances without relying on you guys. And we're going to be sovereign, actually sovereign, and not sovereign that relies on someone else, right? So, and it's all about sovereignty. And when he says that, and then he does that, and then it works, or it seems to be going in the right direction to be actually working, then I believe it's not going to take long, 2, 3 years, 4 years, until you're going to have a lineup of delegations from different countries around the world, especially African countries, that want to come and learn. How did he do that? This is the case study of breaking out of that global control.
Yes, exactly. And it's done entirely peacefully. This country is not hurting anybody.
No.
They just said, hey, we're tired of listening to outside forces telling us what to do, which we have decades of evidence has actually hurt us more than it has done us any good.
Yep.
We're just gonna do what we actually want to do. And for the administration, I say, okay, we're actually gonna work for our people.
That sounds like a crazy idea these days, right? For our people.
What? Yeah. Turns out that's apparently a good idea. So that seems to be working well. Still, that, like, they were attacked for that so much. They continue also to be attacked for them, but because of the way things are changing. Like, a lot of things are changing very quickly. And as part of it, legacy media has lost its pull. So they're still trying, but of course, all the narratives are falling flat. But for like 4 years or so, it was really, really tough for El Salvador on the world stage. But if you look, whenever you would look outside of that moralized mainstream opinion that you were supposed to believe, and I know because something from Europe, and I can see the prevailing opinion in Europe. It's slowly shifting. It's like shifting from the south up. It's like in Spain, it shifted first. Now France is kind of shifting. I wonder when it gets to Germany. But yeah. So I've seen a lot of that, and I still hear a lot of it. It's still very prevalent there. But if you looked at Latin America, what was happening here, very quickly, people were looking at El Salvador, realizing like, oh, hold on, our countries are getting unsafer. Our economies are struggling, and everything just seems to be kind of sort of going downhill. But that country, most dangerous country in the world 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago, is just like,
skyrocketing.
And, so he became extremely popular across the region, while much of the West was still demonizing him.
Yep.
And now what we're seeing is that more and more people are looking at, wait, what did he actually do? Because now we can see some of the symptoms of a similar disease in Western countries. Why are the Western countries getting more dangerous? Like, how is that happening? And why can we not seem to fix it? Why can we not seem to build stuff efficiently? Why have we bureaucratized ourselves to our own doom? Why is there a flood in Spain and the government is not able to take foreign support? Why do they turn away French firefighters at the border over bureaucracy? Why is that happening? And
why do people suffer in the US after a natural disaster and no one's coming to save them?
Yeah.
Why do people in Israel go through October 7th and no one's coming to save them for hours and hours? Why do those wars exist and eliminate tens of thousands of kids and women and people just for the sake of continuing to rule another, or for the sake of continuing to print money, or to strengthen an economy, or to build another pathway for commodities to go through one continent to another. Like, why are those the priorities?
Yeah. Well, sometimes I feel like we have had it too good for too long. Mm-hmm. We've created our little nonsense problems, focused in on them, and meanwhile big problems were growing in the background that we didn't pay attention to. And it's really shocking to me to see that so-called developed countries are unable to manage a crisis. And that's happening more and more, and it makes you wonder what is your job? If you're not doing that, like, then what are you good for? That's why people don't like their governments. And that's why that's happening across the board. And that's why I also understand that when people go, because I talk about El Salvador a lot on my socials, and it's very weird, especially for my European friends. They're like, why are you shilling a dictator? But the dictator is slowly phasing out. But why are you so devout to a government? But it's just because we haven't seen good leadership in the West for a long time, that when we see it, we start to think, oh, that's a dictator, when actually he's just a really good politician.
Yeah. He's a really good leader.
Yeah.
That actually cares about the people.
Yeah, think about that.
I've interviewed a couple of politicians that I think answer that criteria, that actually care about the people that elected them. I mean, when you speak to them, all they talk about is their constituents. They want to make sure that the constituents are happy. And with most politicians, when you hear them talk, the last thing they would talk about is the people that elected them. Mm-hmm. And if they do, then it would be to gaslight them about something. So it's so unique, and I totally identify with what you're doing and what you're saying, because when I see a politician these days that is left of the middle, that is a little bit different, that is not afraid to speak outside of the allowed or permitted sandbox of ideas, then I give them the stage, because people need to remember that it's okay to have different opinions. It's okay to bring different views. It's okay to empower people and not be afraid of the consequences of the state or the government or whatever, that we are free creatures and we're supposed to have freedom of speech and freedom of transactions, freedom of movement, right? So it's so important to keep putting those people in the spotlight, in my opinion, because they are setting an example. And if we don't want to lose faith and trust completely in politicians, if we do want to see some kind of political structure or movement actually holding on to reality and being able to be sustainable, then we do need to put the spotlight on some politicians that are doing a different work, doing a good job, doing something that is hard to find these days. And because people are so quick to forget what good leadership is.
Oh, yeah.
And it existed in history. It existed in the past.
Yeah.
And today it exists very little.
Yes, it's true. You know, a society should have its framework, like, that they agree upon, right? Like, this is the way we want to live in our sovereign country, for example. Mm-hmm. And then the government steps in and says, okay, our job is to uphold that framework, uphold those lines, because, you know, an unprincipled government will foster an unprincipled people. Mm-hmm. So if people, and I feel like that's a big part of what's gone missing, where this framework, these lines, they kept getting moved. So you stop trusting the very system that you live in. Mm-hmm. If you can return to that, that's already a good step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. That's what happened here. That's what happened here with the gangs. It was completely, and it continues to be completely alien to especially Salvadorians here, what they saw when the government started cracking down on, like, harshly cracking down on the gang violence. That suddenly foreign organizations, NGOs were up in arms talking about the human rights of the gang members. It's like that's
yeah, right.
Yeah,
What is that?
Yeah, that's like a symptom of this abstraction away from the principles that you were once ascribed yourself to. Because why did they not talk about the human rights of the people before?
Exactly.
Right. So, and that's something that when you listen, and I think he just put up a video about it where he was talking about it in Costa Rica, about this concept of rights and human rights, where you said you have human rights and your most important human right is your right to life. Why did these foreign NGOs and whatnot, why did they not care about the right to life of the innocent people that were being murdered before? Why did they care more about the right to freedom of movement of a criminal than the right to life of an innocent person? And that is something that I really don't know how. It's probably a process where you slowly move away from this framework that you've set up until a point where you've completely abstracted it from its purpose.
Yeah.
And that's when you have you feel like you live in opposite day, like an upside down world. And that's a lot of that happens now, and it's come to such an extreme that obviously people are revolting, and now they're looking at places where you're returning to that kind of framework. And whether you agree with the framework or not, whether you agree with the way El Salvador is doing things or not, at least you know the framework and you can rely on it, and you have a principled government that upholds it. That is not something that I see in the West. I say the West as like a blanket term, right?
Yeah.
In much of the modern West, let's say, I don't see that. And that's why people don't trust their governments. Like, if you have to fear being jailed for a social media post because your government says it's misinformation, and if you have to fear for your life from people that are committing crimes, but they're not being prosecuted for it because of some relativization, I don't know the word, because of some reason that makes them ineligible to be prosecuted because they're marginalized or they're this or they're that, then you lose trust in your government. And that's not, like, regardless of whatever political or ideological opinions you have, you do need to trust that there is principle and that principles are being upheld, that your government does not betray the principles of the nation, the society that agreed upon them. Sometimes they will change over time, but if they're forcibly changed or betrayed by the government, why would the people care? Right? So it's the same thing. If the government doesn't care for public property, why would the people care? You see the opposite here. I don't know, have you been to the downtown?
In San Salvador? Yeah. I've been.
Beautiful, right?
It is.
They built this massive library, and that's just one of the things that they're building there. Is amazing. The way that place is transforming. And
I've been to the National Palace.
Yeah.
And we've orange-pilled the tour guide.
Thanks for something. I had a friend here last week, and she did the tour, and she said the tour guide was talking about Bitcoin.
Really?
Yes.
Maybe it's the same one.
I would assume so.
So we paid in Bitcoin to come in, which was a good, nice first step. And then we did the tour, which is about half an hour, 40 minutes, which is great. I loved seeing the palace. I felt like I'm a Barbie in a Disney movie. It was
pretty,
amazing.
right? Yeah.
And then we got to the big, sorry for interrupting. We got to the garden, which is so beautiful. And there is this sand area in the garden where someone, I guess some Bitcoiners visited there because it was marked inside the sand 21 divided by eternity, right? The symbol that we know. Knut put it out there, which is such a great job. And so 21 million divided by eternity, Bitcoiner visited there. So we asked her, do you know what that means? And she didn't know. So we started talking to her about Bitcoin, and we asked her, I mean, you're giving us this grand tour and you're talking to us about the change in the country and Bukele, and you're such a big fan of his, and you don't know what Bitcoin is. And she said, well, I tried to download the Chivo wallet once and it didn't really work and it was not so good. And we said, well, no problem. Just downloaded this one. And she did. She downloaded a different one, and we tipped her in sats. And then she started asking questions, and we spent another 10 minutes with her. And before we knew it, she was like, awesome, guys. Like, I'm going to start getting tipped with Bitcoin from now on.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And
it's great. You have an openness to it here.
Yeah.
And that is, again...
You can talk to people about it here. They don't look at you with this weird glaze.
Yeah.
Where did you come from?
I think in big part it's also because the people really respect their administration so much. Actually, it's... And that's also something that I have never seen, not in my lifetime. Probably if you look up the history books, you'll see it. But their president is a role model for them. And so if he says, hey, look into Bitcoin, then the sentiment will be much different towards it than if he didn't, let's say. It's like there's a lot of work to be done here in the
for sure
Bitcoin, but
for sure
it's a very interesting thing to see. And it shows you what, like, it shows you what an effect it can have if there is a kind of symbiosis between the administration and the people, and if both know their place. If the president knows, for example, hey, if I want to lead the people, they need to be willing to be led and they need to respect me. That means I have to respect them. I have to look after them. You can see it. But that's what I was getting at. You know, they built this massive library, for example, and all this other stuff. It's been, just over a year old now. And when it was inaugurated, during the inauguration, he was talking about, the ancient Greek concept of having beautiful public spaces, like the agora, the place in Greek societies where the people come together to have classes, have food, or talk, or do philosophy or whatnot. Just like the place to be, which is a concept that doesn't really exist anymore now. Probably died out in the last 10, 15 years. To have a public place that you go and where people come together and they don't live alongside each other, but they live with each other. And there's an interaction there. And that place was supposed to be beautiful and high quality. And that's what they aim to do with the whole downtown and with everything else that they're building, and also with the Vinais, which is the library. So he said our public spaces should be better than our private spaces. Because what you do is, well, two things. One is you encourage the people to look after the place. So I will go in and I will think, okay, I'm not going to throw my trash on the floor. It's really beautiful and nobody else is doing it. And then everybody gets to use a beautiful library. I'm not going to steal a book, because if everybody does this, there's no books in the library. But also it portrays something to the outside. So you feel like, oh, I have this, like, that's my downtown. Like, that's so beautiful. I live there. That's what's happening. And I think that's amazing to see. And whenever I see this here, I think back to my hood.
Oh, yeah, your hometown, yeah.
And unfortunately, I see it every time I go back. I feel like people, there's no sense of that. So there's no sense of this, hey, I'm really like, well, I'm actually thinking about saying I'm proud to live here because I'm from Germany and we're not supposed to be proud to be German. I said this accidentally once in a podcast and I got a lot of hate for it. Like,
you serious?
Yeah. How dare you be proud to be German? Being German is not an achievement. Don't you know our history? But it completely misses the point. The point is not.
That's the kind of indoctrination that I can't stand that the state is doing to the citizens, like introducing so much shame and guilt and victimhood into us. You know, and it's very similar in Israel. We're being indoctrinated to live in a constant state of threat, existential threat, from the moment we're very little. Even in kindergarten, you're being taught about wars and Holocaust, you know, from a very young age, which I think is not appropriate, shouldn't be taught in such an early age. The curriculum should definitely be changed in a place where you don't want to traumatize the kid. And yet kids have to understand what sirens are in a very young age, because we have Memorial Days with sirens, very loud sirens, twice a year at least, for the National Memorial Day for the soldiers, the soldiers that fell in battle. And the second one is the Holocaust Day. So from a very young age, you're being brought up to ask the questions, why am I standing up? Why is this siren? And the siren is also in a very, loud, bad frequency for you physically, mentally. You feel that something's wrong. And then you're being told all these stories behind it. It's not a way to bring up a society to keep thinking that we are always haunted, that someone's out to get us, that we are not supposed to be living our lives as free creatures and proud creatures and you know, and just have no fear in life. That's the kind of conditioning that we are under. You're under a conditioning of you shouldn't be proud of who you are and where you came from, which is so fucked up.
Yeah, it misses the point. And it actually destroys so much fear as well. And I remember, and what I think is, well, you know, but I actually have family living in Israel, and I have, so I lived in, it's not to make comparisons, but when I was living in Taiwan, I saw that, people were getting used to, the foreign, how do you call it, the foreign, spacecraft in their, not spacecraft, aircraft in their airspace. People are getting used to constant state of threat. For me, it was, in the beginning, it was very scary to see. And then I saw the Taiwanese, they're like, yeah, it's just like that here.
It's normal.
Like,
you get used
you know,
to it.
Yeah. And I saw the same because I work with somebody in the Ukraine. And when we were on calls and she had the sirens in the background, she's like, yeah,
it's fine. Let's keep
it
going.
Happens. Yeah. And it's the same with my family who lives in Israel. You get used to it, but that doesn't mean
that it's right.
Yeah, exactly. And once you live like that, you start thinking yourself small, and nothing good can come from that. And it was like that here as well. So Salvadoran people were made to think themselves small. Nobody cared. Nobody, you know, it's just like, oh, it's like Trump called it a shithole country, right? But it's just that place where people live under constant threat of a de facto, like, second government. How does that even happen? How can you be under such rule of just straight up evil people? So if you can break through that, if you can fix that, and that is way more than just, and that's why I said earlier, he's done way more than just fix security, which itself is a massive, like, that
huge.
That could, like, you could talk about that for hours, how that happened, but he did way more than that because he had to basically revitalize the Salvadoran spirit, so to say.
Right.
There had to be a sense of courage and of empowerment, that you feel like, hey, you are allowed to think yourself capable. You are allowed to have dreams, to have ambitions, to have hopes. And you know, don't let anybody tell you that just because you're from this country, or just because your country's small, or just because your country's like this, you're never going to amount to anything. And if you get to pull a nation together like this, he pulled a de facto two-party system into a nation that is like 90% in support of him, right? If you get
Amazing.
A nation to pull the same string, see what you can do. So looking at Germany, for example, we're like all fragmented, and we're fragmented by these, we're artificially fragmented because we have so many parties, but actually there's no loyalty to the parties. You're just kind of voting for the least worst, and it shows. But imagine you could sort of step away from making everything partisan, making every issue an ideological issue, and actually look at, hey, what are the main problems here? And let's stop coloring them in blue or red or green or whatever other colors we have in Germany. But let's see how we can come together and fix it as a nation, which is what happened here. See what you could do, but it's not really happening.
No,
and I wish
I think that we're going to go through some more rough times before we get there in the West. Yeah.
Yes.
Or at least in Europe. And
yes. And it's really sad because, so if you look at the US, why does everything has to be so divisive? And you see it the way the Europe covered the US election. Why divide people further? It's doing the opposite. And then you start to think, is it incompetence? Is it ignorance? Or is it willful?
Mm-hmm.
If it's the first two, maybe you can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the last one, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel Sorry, I know I talk so much about El Salvador. I'm very passionate about it.
You're saying such amazing things. I love it. Keep going.
I feel, and probably that's one way to answer the question why I ended up moving here. I feel that here you have a country that's trying to create a safe space from that. It's not trying, El Salvador is not trying to be anything it isn't. It's just trying to make itself great and do whatever possible to lift up the nation and the people and the quality of life. And it invites people who want to contribute to that. And it's not partaking in any of these ideological situations that are going on, that are dividing people. Mm-hmm. So I feel like going here, if you agree with this, and if you're aligned with that, then you have an opportunity to participate in something big and to contribute to it and to see how your effort actually makes a change, even if it's a small one, to see how that you're building something that's made to last. And a lot of people in Europe, and again, I will take the example of Germany again. For example, they have an idea for a business, for a project, for a product. They will not pursue it because it is A, it's too hard to create a company, do all the bureaucracy and whatnot. B, they have no trust that it can last. C, they will be taxed into oblivion.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, D, generally, you don't want to start building an existence on a sinking ship. And that is a disease, and it is unfortunately not being treated the correct way. So people will either not do it or they will go somewhere else to do it. Mm-hmm. So I went somewhere else.
Yep.
And that's what happens. And then in the end, you'll see the right approach and how it works. And looking at El Salvador, and the way that other countries are starting to look at El Salvador, I think that you have a very, very good chance here at something lasting. And I'd rather do something with lasting impact, right? And that can actually stick around for a little bit. Yeah.
And I have a feeling that that's what's going to happen with your company and also with your projects, with your various projects. So you said before something interesting that resonates a lot with me, and that is that current leader is actually showing respect to his people. And at the same time, I think that level of respect is being asked from the people towards the establishment, towards the government. So there's like this reciprocal relationship of respect that is being asked for. But in return for that respect, they understand that they can trust more. They understand that they have someone to work with. And I think one of the things that is showing them, or maybe down the track they will understand it more, that shows them, that proves them that they can really trust more, is the fact that the government has put in place a law that is actually allowing them to embrace a financial tool, a financial instrument that gives them more sovereignty, that has a potential of giving them more sovereignty, even if they don't have that level of sovereignty today. They're not even aware of that, that whole realm of Bitcoin. They don't understand what it does and what it enables. They can still learn along the way that they have been gifted with something that down the track will allow them to be more sovereign and allow them to have more custody of their own assets and their own wealth and their own energy in the end of the day. In one way, it's so simple to just say, yeah, when he allows people to actually hold Bitcoin, he releases control and he allows them to have greater control over their lives. So he shows them respect, not just by the way he treats them, but also with the tools he's giving them. It forces him to release more control and to give the people more control.
Yes.
And so you and I both are, this is a pretty long question, but you and I both are working with Trezor because they see both of us as people that probably have some affiliation with self-custody, self-sovereignty. We preach for those ideas. We want to allow people to be more responsible for their lives and take greater control over their lives. And that mission aligns amazingly with the mission of of Bitcoin and with the mission of El Salvador and with the vision of El Salvador and what it enables people to have down the track. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking the question back to Trezor and to self-custody and to Bitcoin. What does self-custody mean for you? Why is this something that is important for you? How do you see this align with what you do and what you stand for? Mm-hmm. And then with El Salvador, to me, it's clear.
Yeah. No, it's I've worked with them for like a year and a half now. Yeah, I think like a year and a half.
They're an amazing company.
Yeah. And they're my only sponsor. And I really...
Same.
Yeah. There you go. Thank you. Where's the camera? Thank you, Mr. Trezor. The thing is, well, what does self-custody mean? It's actually really simple, and it's the main reason, like the first thing I like to say when people say, what's the thing about Bitcoin that's like the best thing about Bitcoin is that you own your money.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to ask permission to send or withdraw. You don't have withdrawal limits. Your bank doesn't. I have done so many international transactions. I've actually lost money between two countries once in an international bank transaction. How does that work? Isn't that like, that's just numbers on a screen? Like, come on. There were like two intermediary banks in between, and nobody was responsible. And of course, but everybody took the fees, but the money was gone anyway, so.
When Herman was giving a similar example just before about Africa, I can understand, but here you are in a Western world trying to do this thing, and it's just the same. The fiat system is broken.
Yeah, it's horrible. And it is so simple once you actually have experienced it, once you go through it once, to realize that if you own your money, you have a kind of freedom that you didn't have it before. You don't have to explain to anybody anything about your money. It's your money. You can do with it what you want. It's in your drawer or wherever you keep your Trezor, which you should buy.
Which is not in my drawer.
No, I don't actually have one.
You lost it also?
Yes.
Me too.
Every year it's cursed. And it's up to you. It's up to nobody else. And nobody has a say. That is such a simple concept that we have not grown up knowing, because we've grown up with the banking system, and we see like the long Bitcoin transaction IDs, and we hear that, oh, if you lose your key, then you're poor. That's very scary. But once you overcome that, and once you realize like, okay, all I have to do is not be an idiot and like actually look after the stuff that I own, then it's much easier to use Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And it's such an easy concept and such an easy explanation. It's my favorite explanation. Just like own your money. That's like, most people will have a hard time accessing the topic of Bitcoin if you start with decentralization, because what the hell does that even mean?
Yeah.
You will understand that if you live in an oppressive regime, for example, right? But if you want to, you have to talk to different audiences differently, right? But for most people, if you start somewhere simple, like it's yours, nobody can ask you what you're doing with it or tell you what to do with it or limit the amount that you're allowed to use. That's very easy to understand. So that's, yeah. I mean, as I said, I've worked with them for a long time now, and I love it. And they're great, and the products are great. And actually the reason why I think they're the best, and obviously we're sponsored now, it's going to sound like a PR thing, but I actually believe this is that, and you see this in their marketing, they actually market like a real world company, not like a Bitcoin company.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's right. I actually really like their marketing department. Again, speaking as a marketeer, they do really good work with their videos. They have a new brand ambassador, and no, they did not ask me to say this or you. This is like, I really appreciate the company. I think they're doing something really right. And also the fact that they are talking about how low the adoption of hardware wallet is in the space. I don't remember the percentage now, but it's in one figure. Yeah. It's like less than 10%.
Yeah.
It's so few people actually have a hardware wallet and hold their Bitcoin in a cold storage that it just blows my mind. Most people still hold their Bitcoin on exchanges. It's such a bad idea. Do you actually want your money to be yours, or you are happy to have someone else take care of it? Now, I think that in some cases, there are some use cases for when custodian solutions are actually important. For companies, for example, or if you have really large sums of wealth that you want to store, then you may want to involve more people in custodying your wealth. So there's definitely a case for it. But for the individual, for most people, especially those who are just starting up, there's no better way, in my opinion, than holding your own Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's a shift. It's a shift towards personal responsibility.
Exactly.
And you can't even blame people for being scared of it, because it's such, like, we're just not used to it anymore. It is what it is. And you have to just, like, take responsibility for your money. And it's that simple. I will say that we probably don't have the perfect solution yet with the whole seed phrase ready and how do you store it and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I also appreciate that the Trezor guys are constantly working on stuff, which is actually, they're like OGs. They've been like around since 2012 or something. So. Yeah. How
did you get into it so early?
Oh, I'm not around since 2012.
No, but you're around, what, you said 7 years?
2017.
Yeah. So what was your way in?
I always felt like I was late.
No, dude, I'm late. I'm 2.5 years in, so.
No, but, well, they say we're still early. Which I think so.
Which we are.
Yeah,
of course we are.
I got into, that's such a lame story.
You don't have to.
I got into Bitcoin through shitcoins. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, like everyone in 2017. Because 2017, all the shitcoins were hitting the market.
That's right.
Weather forecast coin, supply chain coin.
That's right. There were ICOs every day.
Yes.
The dream was sold to every peasant. It was great. Out there. You can be rich through another cryptocurrency.
Yes, it was awesome. I was part of it. And then I realized.
And you learned the hard way?
I learned the hard way, and I got better. That's how I got into the space, though. And then through it, I traveled a lot and went lots of places, and I found some jobs in the space. And then 2020 on the side, did the comics. Then that became my main thing. And then that became a company. Then with that, I traveled some more to all the conferences and stuff. Through that, actually, is how I got my connection to El Salvador, because I made a plushie for the president. He said, I want it.
Awesome.
I said, okay. So, actually, that's why I came here, because in August last year.
You came to give it to him?
Yes, I made a deal. So I could enter the presidential house. That's not how it, but anyway. Awesome. So I brought the plushie here to hand it to him, and then I was like, I'm gonna do like a El Salvador tour. And then while I was waiting for my appointment to hand over the plushie, I saw the country and I was like, oh my God, it's incredible. And so that's how that happened.
Okay. I have to ask you a little question just from before, when you were talking about the new books that you're working on for the kids. Are you going to do them also in a digital version, or is it just physical books that you guys are working on?
They'll be open source. So
that too will be open source? Wow.
Yes. So they will be available. We'll probably figure out some way to put the PDF online or something.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then I'm thinking, most likely we'll also, they'll be in Spanish, right?
Yes,
so most likely we'll also translate it to English, and then I'll have an option for you to get it off my store or just download it, the PDF for free. Like, it'll be something like this.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It is not usual for a government to allow other countries to get access to their, IP, so-called IP, right?
Yeah.
And this is on the Bitcoin ethos, I think. Let me see what else I wanted to ask you. Oh, Beans of Fire. Yes. Tell us about Beans of Fire. Do we have something here?
We actually have something here.
Bring it.
I swear I didn't bring it to plug it, but
I want to see.
Alexia. Thank you.
I had in the airport, they gave me a taste.
Oh yeah, they give it to you for free.
Yes, for free.
Okay, you have to tell me. I see 1, 2, 3 cameras.
There are 4
2
here.
5 cameras.
Yeah, there are 2 here. Let's see what you're showing.
Yeah, I swear I did not bring this to plug it. We're actually taking some photos with it later. But
awesome.
That's just great.
Who designed this box? It's so nice.
The president designed this box.
No way.
Yes.
He designs?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He
does design?
He does a bit of everything. I don't know if he used an app or something, but basically it's his brainchild. So actually, the story behind this design in particular is that he did this in like one sitting, and then after he was done with it, he's like, okay, I'm gonna make it into a brand, and then from there, like from this, developed the rest of the brand. Yeah.
And so, tell me your involvement with it.
Yes. We do the, sort of hidden behind it now, but.
No, keep it.
Okay.
Whatever.
We do the marketing, the public work for Bean of Fire, which is the president's passion project, basically. So.
And is it locally targeting the population or foreigners?
Yes. So it is a 100% Salvadoran product sold right now exclusively in the US. Yes. So,
okay, just in the US. Okay.
And the plan was actually to also only sell it in the US, but now we're getting like requests from other countries. But yeah, so that was the idea. He has a farm on Santa Ana volcano. Have you been?
Not yet. Okay. I need to get there.
That's an interesting hike over there if you're into that. So he's a farm on the volcano where they make the coffee. Everything's done here. Even the packaging is done here. That's like actually part of that's part of the whole, the whole vision of it. And then, we sell it in the US. And it was, for him, it was a hobby at first. So he just started it because his team went, Mr. President, you need a hobby. Like
how does he have time for hobbies?
Yeah, I don't know. Like Elon Musk is like 4th in the Diablo score in the world or something. I don't know. But yeah, so that became his hobby. But I think that because, he was an entrepreneur before he was president. So an entrepreneur cannot have a hobby because they will turn it into a business. That like it's impossible for an entrepreneur to have a hobby. So he turned it into a business. And we joined to fix up the marketing and everything, and to see how we can position this. And I mean, basically it's basically like a private extension of his public work, is like how we like to look at it, because he's right now he's pushing for the economy to like actually economy is already uphill in El Salvador. It's very interesting to watch. But as I said earlier, like he's a bit of a role model for the people, right? And I think it's very interesting that he would pursue a private project like this, because actually what is happening, and we've seen this happen over the last few months, this just launched in July. It's a very young brand. He's basically walking the walk. He's not just talking the talk like, hey, let's export stuff. Let's make Salvadoran products. Let's put ourselves on the map. He's actually doing it himself. So he has an ambition to take the mark of made in El Salvador and make it into something grand, which is a good opportunity right now because there's so much happening here that the world doesn't see. Like El Salvador is a coffee country, but because of what happened here before, because of the civil war, because of like all the things that happened, this coffee industry had no opportunity to blossom and to grow and to compete with other coffee nations like Colombia and all that. And there is an opportunity, and there is an eye on El Salvador right now. So basically, he's leading by example, saying, hey, let's do more of this. Let's make Made in El Salvador something great. And he's actually inspiring a lot of people to do the same. And I love to see that. So yeah, that's his coffee brand. It looks very fancy too.
It is. It looks great. So while I totally understand the positive side of it, I want to play devil's advocate for a sec and ask you, so would it not be in a way cannibalizing some private coffee makers here that are trying to make a living when the president comes in with his own brand, which already has automatically his popularity and his brand behind it, and he will definitely do well with whatever product he puts in the market. So would it not drive some, I don't know, frustration for the local coffee makers that will go, oh, but you're hurting our market share or something? I do see how it can help them also gain momentum But then what is their response? How would they take it?
Actually, no, it's actually the opposite. People are very excited because, for one, it's drawing attention to the space, to the industry as well. So actually, the entire Salvadoran coffee industry, so to say, benefits from this because people are looking at Salvadoran coffee more. And then you have to also know this is a premium product, so it's in the upper price category, and it doesn't, in that sense, it doesn't compete with many others.
With a cheaper level.
Yeah. So we actually receive a lot of feedback from Salvadoran coffee farmers and Salvadoran coffee brands. I'm not saying everybody, right? But like the vast majority, they're very excited about it because, again, it is something that they can put out into the world. They can say, hey, this is like a premium product that's all from El Salvador, and it shines a positive light on our industry and actually boosts the Salvadoran coffee industry as a whole. And it's, and I hear this a lot from my Salvadoran friends as well. They looked at it and they said, wow, it's so high quality. Like, I don't know we could do something like that, is what she said. And
then you don't have to, you just do what you can do.
Yeah. But it's crazy to me because it shows this conditioning that you had before to think yourself small.
Yeah.
Why would you not be able to do that?
Right.
So, of course you are. So it's just, in that
Think big.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It can happen.
Yes. It's
Love
very
it.
good coffee.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I am going to ask you to choose one of your songs to end this episode with, because I'm going to put it in the end of the episode so that people can see, or you're playing the piano and you're singing.
My God.
So you'll have to choose one and give it to me later.
Okay.
And just to end on a message of hope, and maybe, I don't know, you're such a creative person. So like, just give us a little bit of that, for my audience to be hopeful in such a weird, turbulent time in the world. What kind of words of hope can you give them?
I've never been as hopeful as I have been here, because you see here things can go differently. You're not doomed to the trajectory that we see in much of the modern world right now, where everything seems to be headed towards an economic disaster zone, towards more political division, towards war, or we're already in like war. Like at what point do you change the definitions, right? So it can go differently, and all it takes is, capable leadership and good intentions.
Yeah.
And it's up to everybody, like, to make the decisions that make them feel the most confident in their future, and whatever that means for you, whichever place you go. A lot of people go to other places, or they find a place in the country they live in, make it nice for themselves, or they get active in politics where they are. I know a lot of Germans who do that. For me, the best decision was to go somewhere that my efforts are welcome, and where I feel like my time and my contributions are valued, and where they have an impact, where I feel that I am contributing to a bigger purpose. That is very fulfilling.
It is.
It's hard to put that into words if you haven't had that experience, because if you haven't had it and then you see it for the first time, you realize that you've been missing out on probably one of the core tenets of life.
Yeah.
And
what an experience, huh?
Yes. And that is why you will find so many people talk so positively of El Salvador. It's actually a very simple concept, but to have purpose and to feel like you're building something of lasting impact, that's extremely valuable. And wherever you can find that, it doesn't have to be here. I would say find it here, but I am biased. So if you know a place or a direction, not even a physical place where you can find it, that's what you should do.
100%. And you should know that I think the top 3 audience group of mine is from Germany. So a lot of German people are going to listen to this
great
episode. So for them, maybe a special message is sent to don't lose hope if you're not hopeful where you are.
Yeah. Kommt nach El Salvador.
That's in German?
Yeah, that was German.
Come to El Salvador?
Yes.
Awesome. Lina, before I started my trip here, I put a tweet out, in the airport where you can take a photo with the president's photo. I did
the
that.
little presidential office.
Yeah, I did that, and I tagged him and asked if he would like to be interviewed by me. And obviously, I did not get my request yet. I'm still hopeful. That's my big dream. But it would be so amazing if he happens to watch this episode, because I think I really acknowledge and appreciate the work that he's been doing here. And I acknowledge and appreciate just as much, if not more, the work that you've been doing here and
More
in
than
general.
his? No.
Oh no, listen, you are a force to be reckoned with. You're very modest, and you're very quiet, and you're very, you're a girl and all that stuff that people think, but you are so powerful. So the work you're doing is really impressive, and I thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you so much for having me and for coming here.
Yeah,
I'm
so stoked to be here.
Yeah,
so
we
good.
should have that really good chimichurri.
Yeah, we should go and try it. Right? Thanks so much, dear.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful time with you.
Kiss me out of the bearded barley nightly, beside the green, green grass. Swing, swing, swing the spinning step. You wear those shoes and I will wear that dress. Oh, kiss me beneath the milky twilight. Lead me out on the moonlit floor. Lift your open hand, strike up the band, and make the fireflies dance. Silver moon sparkling. So kiss me. Kiss me down by the broken tree house. Swing me upon its hanging tile. Bring your flowered hat. We'll take the trail marked on your father's map. Oh, kiss me beneath the milky twilight. Lead me out on the moonlit floor. Lift your open hand, strike up the band, and make the fireflies dance. Silver moon sparkling. So kiss me. Kiss me beneath the milky twilight. Lead me out on the moonlit floor. Lift your open hand, strike up the band, and make the fireflies dance. Silver moon sparkling. So kiss me. So kiss me.